So we're walking back to our stealth site. I don't think anybody's back here. I don't see any signs of a tent or anything. But we are going to be testing out our new hot tent, which is a Luxe Minipeak. And we're also going to be testing out our ammo can wood stove for the first time in the field. And in that last video, we had everything set up in the yard, just in case something went wrong. But now we're at our stealth camp. You've seen us camp here before, one of our favorite spots. And it's close to town, so there's a chance of snow tonight. And we have to get some firewood ready, get the tent set up. And I'm going to go into more detail about the tent and the stove later in this video. But for right now, I want to go ahead and set everything up and get some wood processed before it gets dark. Okay, well, this is home for the night. It's awful bright in here right now. I've got the headlamp on high because it was kind of grainy otherwise. But yeah, we've got some wood here. We lucked out. We found some locust and what I think was cherry. That locust is nice and seasoned. It was kind of tough to saw through, but the good thing about that is it's going to burn for a long time. And when it's light out in the morning, I'm going to show you the pyramid in a little bit more detail. But it's warming up nicely in here. I've got this nice wooden pole in the center here, which is kind of nice because I can hang things from it. I left some of those little nubs on there on purpose. Garvey's hanging out here in the corner. He likes his spot there with his fleece blankets. And yeah, that's drafting nicely. If I shut the door, I have it open right now, but if I shut it, it'll be nice and toasty in here. It's supposed to get down into the low 30s tonight, so I don't know if I have enough wood, but I have this piece of locust right here. I can always saw that up if I need to. And I do have my -20 Montbell Downhugger Expedition sleeping bag. And I've never, ever been cold in that bag. Hopefully I won't be this time either. So we're going to boil some water, have some hot cider, and probably once the stove is nice and primed up, we're going to get to cooking. Now, there's not going to be a whole lot of grease since it's sirloin, but what I do have, I'll pour off into Garvey's dish over there. Okay, so what we have here is a can of Manwich, and if they ever change the name to Personwich, I'm not buying it anymore. Just saying. And I think we're going to do an open face Sloppy Joe. Why not? I don't think we're going to be able to pick these up and eat them because they're a bit too sloppy, hence the name Sloppy Joe. So we'll just set this aside for now, and we can always put it back on top of the stove if we need to. We have water boiling, constantly have water boiling for hot drinks. And I tell you what, it is toasty in here. Yeah, it's above 80 degrees, so whew, I think it's driven Garvey out. He's outside. But we're going to go ahead and finish up dinner, clean up, do our dishes, probably process a little bit more wood, and just hang out and enjoy this wonderful warm tent. So it's about 9:30, I guess. Still no snow, no rain even. The temperature's dropped a bit. I guess it's about in the low 40s. But it's nice and toasty in here. We've got the door open on the stove. And Garvey's hanging out over here. He doesn't want his top blanket on him A little too hot for that right now. But yeah, it's warm enough in here to almost drive you out. But that's it for today, and tomorrow, like I said, I'm gonna get a little bit more into the details of this tent when it's light out and you can actually see it. And I'll talk a little bit more about my stove also. So anyway, we're gonna hit the hay and we'll catch you in the morning. Good morning. It is about 35 degrees outside and freezing rain. We just stoked up the stove and got it to about 45 already. No, actually 55. Yeah. It takes a few minutes to warm up, but it was frigid when we woke up. You can still kind of see my breath a little bit, but we stayed really warm. I've got my Montbell -20 down hugger sleeping bag. This thing is awesome. I carried this on our through hike through Virginia last March 2018, and I didn't regret it one bit. I have never ever been cold in this sleeping bag. I've been down to single digit temperatures in it and stayed nice and toasty. So yeah, we don't let the stove go at night. There's really no reason. You'd have to be waking up every 2 hours to feed it. Not to mention, you know, it's not exactly safe. Although I know what I'm doing. I've used a wood stove before, but still, it's always good to make sure you have hardly any fuel left in the stove. Make sure your vents are closed. Your damper is completely shut. And yeah, you don't want a full hot stove when you go to bed. Not too smart. So, we're going to get to chopping some wood, drinking some coffee, and when we come back, we'll make breakfast. So I guess there's about I don't know, an inch of snow on the ground outside. Darby's out there ready to frolic. It's probably too warm for him inside the tent here. Yeah, this is the perfect weather to test this in. So breakfast was really good, despite breaking my spoon. That's not the end of the world. I've got some more wood over there. Really needs to be processed if we're going to hang out here for a while. And you know what? We probably will. I'm in no hurry to get back home. I think that's what we're going to do. And as I said, as I've promised, I am going to talk about the stove, kind of how I made it, how it works, some of the details, and also I'm going to show you more about the tent, and that's coming up next. Okay, some of you may have guessed, the stove body is made out of a 50 caliber ammunition can. When you first get the can, you have to remove a few things, and one is a rubber gasket that goes around the perimeter of the lid. Also, there's a double piece inside the lid, a second piece of metal that holds in the gasket. I removed that by drilling through the rivets and popping it off with a screwdriver. And I've reused that piece, and I'm going to tell you a bit about that in a minute. Also on the lid there is a carrying handle that has to be removed. I did that the same way. I drilled through the rivets, and I got a 3-inch hole saw. I punched the center hole where I wanted the center of my flue hole to go, and I drilled it with that hole saw. So underneath the flue here is a 3-inch piece of galvanized, I guess it's galvanized muffler pipe. 3-inch outside diameter, so that fit perfectly into the hole. The damper is actually the circle from the piece of the lid that I cut out, and this is a titanium tent stake that controls the damper. And this is just a piece of metal I had left over from my door, and that actually allows it to get really hot right here. It's a second piece of metal to heat up when I'm cooking, and I've actually seasoned that with olive oil, so I could probably put a little bit of butter and fry an egg on there, or toast some bread, whatever I wanted to do. I told you before there was a second piece of metal that I removed when I removed the gasket, and that second piece of metal is my baffle. So back here you can see a screw on this side, and there's also one on the other side as well. And what that is the piece that I removed from the lid. I bent this way, and then it comes down to about here, and then it goes all the way to about here, and then it stops. So it's a baffle, so all this heat that's burning right here doesn't go straight up the flue. It has to travel around the front of the stove and then up through the baffle. So if you look to the top of the stove, you can see the baffle right here. Okay, so all that heat in the back has to travel all the way to the front, and that's where I want it when I'm cooking. And that second piece of metal on top of there really helps. So that's what I did with my lid. On the inside I have, that's just a piece of perforated metal, galvanized metal, and all of this gets burned outside first before you bring it inside a tent. Anytime you've got galvanized or high heat paint, you have to burn it outdoors to get rid of all the fumes before you bring it in your tent. So this is the back of the door. The door is just a piece of steel. I'm not sure what gauge, 16, 18. Just held on with a hinge, screws, bolts on the other side. This was a piece of steel I cut out for the air intake. One thing I noticed, when it gets really hot, it doesn't open or close because the metal expands, and I kind of have to open the door at that point, let it cool down a little bit if I want to choke it. I'll have to kind of file that down so it moves a little better, so when it does expand when it's hot, I can still push it open or closed. Now the reason I did this panel here not only is for extra strength, but I had ordered, or at least I thought I'd ordered, a piece of mica glass. In the future there will be a piece of glass in here so I can see my fire burning. It'll be easier to know when I need to add wood. I won't have to open the door to do that. The clasp is just a piece of metal that I bent into an L shape, and there are some lock washers on either side of it, so that provides a little tension. And then just push it down into that little slot. So the legs are just perforated angle iron, and I just drilled holes on the inside of the stove. There's no washer, it's just a pan head screw, stainless steel. There's a washer on the outside and a wing nut. Also, the hole in the perforation is a little bit bigger than the diameter of the screw, and that allows me to adjust the leg if I need to. I can move it up a little, I can move it down, which helps leveling out the stove. I've got some titanium shepherd's hook tent stakes going down into the ground, holding the stove in place. Now the perforated metal, I can push that into the ground and it stays down pretty solid, but having stakes in there gives me extra insurance that this stove is not going to tip over. The flue is very interesting. You can see there's a seam back here, and this is actually a piece of titanium And it has these little hooks that keep it in place. You can see the discoloration in the titanium, and that's because it's heated up and it's retaining this shape. Whenever I unroll it, it's always going to go into the shape of the 6.5 foot piece. So when I pack up the stovepipe, I'll show you how it rolls up, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about, I think. 8 pounds, 8 ounces is the total weight of this stove. Which isn't bad because, you know, sometimes I carry that much just in water when I'm looking for a campsite. It's snowing quite a bit harder now. Let's take a look outside. The spark arrestor seems to be doing a great job. I couldn't be happier. It was $2.99 at $1.50 for the radiator hose clamp. And the best part about it was zero fabrication. I mean, it came like that. I couldn't believe it. The one thing about this stove build that actually I found in the store and I didn't have to customize, I just used it right away. So that's great news. And we have some water on the stove, so we'll have hot drinks soon. And the landscape outside hasn't changed that much, but seems like this kind of fine, sort of misty rain slash snow has been falling all day long, all morning. So this tent is made by Luxe Outdoors. This is the Minipeak XL. And this is a 3-person tent, and it has a stove jack as standard issue. There are doors on both sides. You can completely open both sides up, and this is a very similar style of tent to the Black Diamond Megalight, which you've seen me use many times before. This is a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, and instead of sil nylon, this is made out of ripstop poly, so it will not sag when it's wet. And so far, this is proving to be correct. Now, back to the doors, I could unzip this zipper and do the same thing that I did over here on this side and kind of have a good airflow vestibule while still leaving the sleeping side of the tent enclosed and blocked off from the wind and kind of retaining some of the heat. Right now I've just got the door open because it's quite hot in here, and it looks quite nice out there. It's a great view, and it is super toasty in here. So Garvey's been out there enjoying the snow. He loves the cold weather. He thinks he's the polar bear. But there is plenty of space in here. This is actually bigger than the Black Diamond tent as well. And you can get an insert for this. It's I guess a 1.5 person insert, and it takes up half of the tent. So you would have the insert over here on the sleeping side, and that's what these hooks are for. And we've got 2 vents here. There's no bug netting in the vents, but that doesn't really matter. Actually, I think it's better not to have bug netting, because if bugs do get up there, you've got a way to get out. It never really gets hot. In this area here, I mean, that's not hot at all. But if it does get too hot, like I said, I can just open up the doors, let some more air in here, and it cools it off pretty much immediately. The weight on this tent, I think, is just under 3 pounds, or right at 3 pounds. So there's more than enough space in here. You can't really tell how much space there is on camera, but it's quite big. I think it's 8.5 by 8, a bit bigger than the Megalight. So yeah, this flap isn't even close to being hot. Neither is the flue. I mean, it's warm, that's about it. I'm in a pretty protected spot right now. I'm not too vulnerable to the wind. I've got all of these evergreens and rhododendrons over here kind of blocking the wind. However, I do want to be sure that this tent does not collapse. Therefore, I've got heavy rocks on all four corners. I've got my tie outs tied to trees. Got this tie out going to that tree. So that's not going to come down. Big old rock on this corner as well. And staked out everywhere. Tent's not going to come down. So the temperatures dropped down to about 33 outside. Haven't checked a thermometer lately. Let's see what it is in here. So it's 65 right now. Not bad at all. I'm sure I could crank up the stove a little higher and get it warmer in here, but we're just trying to keep it burning, keep it warm. And it's snowing a bit harder now too. So if we're going to stay here for any amount of time, we're going to have to get water. I hauled up, I think, 4.5 liters, and we've gone through most of that. Most of that's been hot drinks. There is a spring down here. I haven't been down there in about 10 years. Right now, I'm not going to head out and look for that spring just yet. I'm going to sit here and enjoy the stove for a few more minutes and drink some hot chocolate. It's drafting nicely. So I guess we're going to go out and see if we can find some water. I know where the spring is. I just don't know if there's any water flowing right now, but we're going to find out. There's really not enough snow to scoop out snow and melt it, so we're going to take our chances with finding the spring. The stove, I've got it all shut off. The air intake is shut. Damper's shut. There's hardly anything in it. There's no real heat coming off it right now. It'll be fine. And yeah, that spring is just right down the ravine here, so we're gonna get to it. So yeah, it's way downhill. The campsite's up there, tent's over that way, and we're headed down there. And hopefully I can see the spring. There is a pipe, but it's PVC. It'd be really hard to find in the snow. So we're gonna see what we can do. It's been quite a bit of rain the last few days. Actually yesterday, day before yesterday, there was a ton of rain. It rained all day long, and all the water in the area is up. So, ooh, that's encouraging over there. You see that spot where there's no snow? That is probably water. It's kind of shallow. I could get a dipping cup in here for sure. That's probably what I'll do. I know there's a pipe a little bit further down, but heck, there's water here and I can get it, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm glad that's over with. Well, it's not quite over. We still have to walk up this huge hill right here. That's where we're going, up there. Doesn't seem real steep on camera, but trust me, it is. Okay. Back at the fire pit. Whew, I'm warm now. All right. I'm inside. I'm excited to get back inside, get the fire stoked up, and get a hot drink. Oh yeah, it's warming it up quite a bit in here. This is great. I don't even have a wood stove at my house. I just love this. Yeah, I think we're going to pack it up. I just looked at the weather forecast, and it's pretty much going to be that freezing rain, sleet on and off all night. So, I mean, we are prepared. It'd be nice to have a little bit more food, I think. And maybe something for breakfast. I was really only planning on staying out one night, but I brought a little bit of extra food just in case. But it's been enjoyable hanging out here all day, and I'm really getting a idea how the stove works, which is great. And yeah, it's been a great trip. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who have hung out this long in the video, this is video number 200. Yeah, just about over 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I published my first video on this channel. So yeah, 2 years, 200 videos. Kind of cool, I guess. Thank you to all of you who have been watching these videos from the beginning. And if you're new here, I want to thank you and welcome you as well. And we're going to get a little bit of assistance from Garvey here. So remember I told you that when this is heated up, it forms this shape. So what we're going to do is take all of these bands off one by one, and then at that point we'll be able to roll it up 12 inches wide and put it in the stuff sack. Remove the rings, and that's it. All right, we're packed up and ready to go. So I wanted to say thanks for coming along on this excursion, and as always, thanks for hitting the like button, thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you down the trail.